Good day, everyone, and to our dear professor. Good day, sir. My name is Luella Ganados, and I will be your presenter for today's discussion under the subject Facilitating Learner-Centered Teaching CN 5191 EDUC 121. We are tasked to discuss or present to you Chapter 1, which will be focusing on learner-centered psychological principles. And for this chapter, I have my co-presenter with me, Miss Aiden Acuña, and she will be tasked to discuss the first 6 psychological principles. But before we start, I have here a quote for you, and it says, "It is not about what teachers cover, it is about what students discover." And I think with this quote alone, we already have an idea or understanding on what is this subject all about. To start with, let me discuss on what is psychology. Psychology plays a very important role in understanding the teaching and learning process. Many innovations in the learning process have been made possible because of the contributions of psychology. As we all know, psychology is a branch of science that studies human behavior. By studying human behavior, psychology helps educators and teachers to understand the nature of diversity of learners. Teachers are now more confident and competent to teach because of a deep understanding of their learners. They can facilitate learning according to the learner's needs. And history has been witnessed as to how concepts, information, and studies in psychology have helped immensely in understanding the nature of the human being. There are bases for innovations and reforms in teaching. Teaching strategies are made more appropriate for every learner. Part of human nature is learning, which has been made interesting because of the application of knowledge obtained from psychology. Studies are continuously undertaking to enhance knowledge about the teaching and learning process. In this chapter, you are expected to explain learner-centered psychological principles, discuss implications of the learner-centered psychological principles to teachers and educators, analyze specific classroom situation where the 14 learner-centered psychological principles are used, and suggest teaching strategies that could further enhance the 14 learner-centered psychological principles. For Lesson 1, we will discuss learning principles associated to cognitive, metacognitive, motivational, and affective factors. At the end of the lesson, you will be able to explain the cognitive, metacognitive, motivational, and affective factors of teaching and learning. Summarize learning using graphic organizers, and cite classroom situations that manifest applications of the principles. In the early 1990s, the American Psychological Association, or APA, appointed a task force on psychology and education to conduct further studies in both psychology and education. The purpose of this was to conduct studies that could further enhance the current understanding of educators on the nature of the learners about the teaching and learning process. The end goal was to improve the existing school practices so that learning becomes more meaningful to all kinds of learners. The 14 learner-centered psychological principles are categorized as follows. Number 1, cognitive and metacognitive factors with 6 principles or principles 1 to 6. Number 2, motivational and affective factors with 3 principles or principles 7 to 9. Number 3, developmental and social factors with 2 principles or principles 10 to 11. And lastly, number 4, individual difference factors with 3 principles or principles 12 to 14. All these principles influence the teaching and learning process by APA 1997. In this lesson, the metacognitive, cognitive, motivational, and affective factors of learning are discussed. Let us welcome my co-presenter, Ms. Aiden Acuña, to discuss the first 6 principles under cognitive and metacognitive factors. Ms. Acuña?
Thank you, Ms. Ganadas. As what my co-presenter said, by the way, I am Aiden Acuña, and I tasked to discuss about the 6 principles under the category of cognitive and metacognitive factors. But first, let me tell you first what is cognitive and metacognitive. So first, the cognitive means relating to the mental processes involved in knowing, learning, and understanding things. Cognition or mental processes is all about in the memory and learning and problem solving, attention and decision making. So while metacognitive rather means of or relating to metacognition, knowledge and understanding of your own thinking. Okay, again, your own thinking. Students who use the metacognitive strategy of effective organization perform comparatively well in the test. Okay, so metacognition or a higher order cognitive processes, a person has active control over his cognition, thinking about thinking. Okay, and now let's discuss about the cognitive factors. So cognitive factors refers to the mental processes the learners undergo as they process an information, or the way learners think about their thinking as they engage in mental tasks is the concern of the metacognitive factors. And now let's enumerate what are the 6 psychological principles are under in the cognitive and metacognitive factors. Cognitive and metacognitive factors refers to the mental processes the learners undergo as they process an information, the way learners think about their thinking as they engage in mental tasks. So now let's find out the 6 principles. So number 1, the learner is complicated subject matter is the most effective when it is an intentional process of constructing a meaning from information and experience. So number 2, the successful learners over time with support and instructional guidance can create meaningful, coherent representation of knowledge. And number 3, the successful learner can link new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways. Number 4, the successful learners can create and use the repertoire of thinking, reasoning strategies to achieve a complex learning goals. And for number 5, higher order strategies of selecting and monitoring mental operation facilitate creative and critical thinking. And number 6, learning is influenced by environmental factors including culture, technology, and instructional practices. And later on, let's find out what are the examples of these 6 principles. Now let us discuss about the first psychological principle. Number 1 principle, the learning is complicated subject matter is the most effective when it is an international process of constructing meaning from information and experience. So teachers play a significant role in guiding their learners to become an active, goal-directed, and self-regulating, to assume the personal responsibility for their learning. So one of the example is what our professor did by giving us a task as a student, and we are going to discuss a chapter. By doing this, learners will assume responsibility to our own learning. So we are the one who do research and makes PPT, record a video while we explain the certain topics, without us knowing that we already slowly develop our confidence and we become active and self-regulated kind of students. So the learners activities and opportunity, of course, provide by the teacher are very important. Situation where learners can integrate knowledge and concept to their experience, whenever teachers plan to their lesson and topics. So they always need to consider how they can bring reality in the classroom, or some activities that we experience from the last 2 semester are series of discussion of a certain topics. One of them that I can remember is when we asked to share our own experience of culture shock. With the topics given, we learners were able to integrate our own experience. Learners need to have also a clear and concrete understanding of knowledge and concept presented, so that they would also know in what particular or situation they have to apply them. Okay? And for the cultural relativism is one of the topics that I can remember while reading this. During our discussion, we were able to share some personal experience or things or situations that we read or see in our environment. Through that, we totally understood where and when where or when are we are going to apply the cultural relativism. So learning to the experience is the most effective way of teaching. An international learning environment is one of the foster activity and feedbacks and creates a culture that promotes metacognition, that is one in which of the learner become aware of this or her learning process and can use tools to enhance this learning process. So by Beriter and Cardamalia, 1989. And now, let's discuss about the second principle, the successful learner over time and with support and instructional guidance can create meaningful current representation of knowledge. Okay, so learners need to goal directed. And now let's find out why. So teachers have to guide learners in terms of determining their personal goals. They need to set their goals not directed by the others to ensure their willingness to achieve them. By doing this, learner will have more clearer goal, and by that goal, they may able to be more eager to learn and to do something to get that certain goal. So meaningful learning takes place when what is presented to learners is very much related to their needs and interest. When learners have good understanding of the concept discussed in school, they can reach a long-term goal most likely. Just like what I have told a while ago, when we have a clear goal or vision, we will have a sort of compass that we will use to achieve our goal in life. So indeed, it is a challenging to motivate learners to succeed. Yes, it is very challenging to motivate learners, to motivate the learners, as not all learners can easy to be motivated because of discouragement sometimes. So a lot of students are easy to go lucky or happy go lucky type of student, but with the right motivation and approach given by the teacher, they can give a motivation that the student need it. And if they may able to do that, that could be a life changing event for the learners. And now let's discuss about the third principle. The successful learner can link a new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways. In planning a new lessons to be presented, teachers would usually find it more effective when they connect to the learner's existing knowledge to new information. Some professors give a sort of pre-test for them to be able to know the level of learners' knowledge on a certain topics. With the professor has a guide on the level of his or her learners know how of the topic. So the integration of prior experience to a new concept to be learned is a way of making connections between what is new and what is already known. That new knowledge is created from the old knowledge is the very heart of constructivism. Or constructivism is the theory that say learners uh, construct knowledge rather than just passively take information. Okay? As a people experience the world and reflect upon those experiences, they build their own representation and incorporate new information into their pre-existing knowledge. So teachers should be initiate more opportunities for learners to share ideas and of course experience, observation, and reading as they need arises, by giving a sort of activity like discussions, sharing of experience, getting student idea about the topics, giving assignment, and a lot more. Professors be able to give the student more opportunity to share ideas, and in the process, let the student learn and understand more about the topics being discussed. Sharing prior knowledge can be done in creating strategies like concept, mapping, group, activity, and other collaborative techniques, where learners are also able to learn the from each other experience. Okay, and now let's discuss about the fourth principle. Okay, the successful learner can create and use the repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategy to achieve complex learning goals. So strategic thinking is a person's ability to use knowledge in different ways to solve problem, address concern and issue, decrease difficulties in certain situation, and make sound decision and judgment in a varied conditions. A strategic thinker do not easily give up even in difficult situations. So they are more challenged to find ways to solve a problem no matter how many times they already failed. So they are not afraid to commit mistake because they perceive them as a meaningful learning experience to continuously discover other ways to arriving a solution. And of course teachers are supposed to give them many opportunities to learn, um, experiment, solve, explore new ideas and concept, thus to motivate and encourage the learners to be more creative and innovative in their ideas, opinion, and responses are must for the teachers. Let's discuss about the fifth principle, the higher order strategies of selecting and monitoring mental operation facilitate creative and critical thinking. One of the most challenging role of a teacher is to develop among their learners higher order thinking skills or host. It means that their learners can do evaluation as synthesis, analysis, and interpretation of varied concepts, information, and knowledge by developing the learner's host as the very early stage student may be able to apply this for the rest of the class, so they will not be contented to just listen to the class and just accept whatever information they will receive. So they will most probably be asking question and do additional research in order for them to understand and completely get the knowledge that they wanted. So as I previously mentioned, so learners develop their thinking skills when they are provided with opportunities and learning experience to process varied events, situation, specifically if if given a real problem. So this context means that aside from mastering information, discovery, problem solving, creation, and evaluation should also be integrated to their learner experience. So it means learners will not just listen, instead they need to also to self-discover, develop their problem solving skills, create new knowledge, and evaluate their knowledge and learning to the certain topics. So assessment tools in school should be authentic. Student can make inferences, sounds, judgment, and relevant conclusions, and use their learned knowledge to varied situation. Host or HOTS are very much needed in this fast-changing world. And now let's discuss the last principle. Okay, the number 6 principle. Learning is influenced by environmental factors, including culture, technology, and instructional practices. So learning does not only take place inside the classroom, which is true. So much of what learners learn in the classroom with their teacher can only have meaning once they see them concretely in their everyday life. Okay, so it means that not only in the classroom should the student will focus to get their learnings. So reason why some professor give an outside classroom activities, field trips, community experience, and uh, what we call on-the-job training for graduating student. Example given in the classroom should be reflection of their actual life experiences. So it is easier for the learners to understand if certain topics in the school will be integrated to their own experience or will be compared to their day-by-day experience or even in the past experience. So the digital tools and instructional practices must be carefully selected to facilitate motivating, stimulating, and encouraging learner environment geared toward effective acquisition of knowledge, concept, and skills among learners. To discuss the rest of the psychological principles, uh, let me give the floor to my co-presenter, Luella. or Miss Luella Ganados.
Thank you, Miss Acuña. And again, good day to everyone. The second category of psychological principles is the motivational and effective factors, which has three principles is under this category. It is more on how the learner push themselves to learn and how they value learning are the concerns of this factor. The effective factors relate to attitude, feelings, and emotions that learners put into the learning task. Three principles under this category are: number one, how much are learned are influenced by the learner's motivation. Number two, the learner's creativity, higher order thinking, and natural curiosity are contribute to the motivation to learn. And number three, acquisition of sophisticated knowledge and skills requires extensive learner's effort and guided practice. Now, let's discuss about principle number 7. What and how much are learned are influenced by the learner's motivation. Motivation to learn is influenced by the individual's emotional states, beliefs, interests, and goals, and habits of thinking. One of the examples for this is my own motivation to finish my studies based in my emotional states. As a solo parent, I really wanted to finish my studies due to my love for my kids. Aside from doing this for myself, it is more on for my preparation for my kids' future. I do believe that in order for me to provide for them and give them the best that I can give, I must first prepare myself when it comes to my capacity to earn. My interest is to provide for the kids, and my goal is to be able to give them the best life that I can give. And I know I can do it when I have the capacity and if I will equip myself to be ready for that. My goal is to be ready for whatever course they wanted to take when they already in college to ensure their better future. I am very positive that I can achieve all of it in the near future as long as I will do my very, very best and I will persevere on all these challenges and struggles that I may take. Motivation plays a very important role in learning. It pertains to an individual's inner drive to do something, accomplish something, pursue a goal, learn, and master a skill, or just discover without necessarily being forced or pushed by anyone. Yes, indeed, when a student is motivated and wanted to accomplish and pursue a goal, she or he will be able to learn even how hard a topic is, master a skill, and learn or discover anything even without someone or a professor to push them, as their own goal and the student's inner drive will be the one that will push them to do and learn the thing. The level of one's motivation would also determine the extent of his or her ability to accomplish desired task. Slightly motivated and very motivated learners will both result to accomplishment, but the level and extent of their accomplishment depends on how determined and how motivated that the learner had. The way teachers motivate their learners is then crucial to make them actively engage in the learning process. Indeed true. Professor has different style of motivation, no matter what style they are using, and the end point is the same to make the learners to be more motivated with their learnings. The responsibility of giving motivation is being at the teacher's shoulder. It means the more motivation the teachers give, the more motivated learners he can have. In lesson planning, the motivation part of the lesson sets the positive mindset of the learners. No matter how new, challenging, and technical a topic is, if the level of their motivation is high, they would always find the interest to participate and give themselves engaged. Meanwhile, if there were no efforts to motivate learners, then there would also be no engagement to learning. When a professor is not doing his task or responsibility to motivate his or her learners, it will for sure be shown on the students' performance during assessments. Teachers and parents' encouragements, praises, and rewards can boost the learner's confidence. They can also establish positive emotional states and good habits of thinking in individuals. This means small or big accomplishments, when the learners receive encouragements, praises, and rewards, it will surely boost their confidence. When the learner received encouragements during the times that he or she fails to get high results, it will help him boost his motivation to get better result next time. Giving praises and rewards every time the learner achieved something, it will make them more confident and will be motivated to stay getting good results, as praises and rewards is a good motivation factor for the learner keep on doing good or best in school. Learners will always feel that mistakes and errors are normal part of learning. Teachers should also use learning materials and strategies that would eradicate learners' anxiety, panic, and even insecurities. Now let's discuss principle number 8. The learner's creativity, higher order thinking, and natural curiosity all contribute to the motivation to learn. There are two kinds of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is manifested when an individual engages in an activity or task that is personally gratifying. It is personally rewarding, and there is no expectation for any external or tangible reward. Intrinsic motivation is stimulated by task or optimal novelty and difficulty, relevant to personal interests, and providing for personal choice and control. For a solo parent like me, I have already enough motivation to do my best in school and also to be ed satsang students. Majority of us are working students and is paying our own tuition fees. I for sure know that we are all motivated to do better in school, as I think we will not be wasting our own hard-earned money for nothing, right? While extrinsic motivation is its direct opposite. A person engages in a task or activity to earn external rewards or to avoid punishment in some situation. Extrinsic motivation can also be applicable to us in B.Ed Satsang, as we for sure is doing our best also aside from our own self-motivation, but also we aim to get external reward like getting high grades or getting high final grades at the end of the semester. In the end, getting high grades is just an end result of us doing our best in our studies. As teachers and mentors, the most important way to motivate the students to learn is to present the value of that knowledge or concept to their life. Learning is not only about getting good grades or complying with requirements, but it is more of knowing why they need to learn such and to what specific instances in their lives that they would be able to use them. One of the example for this were some of our previous professors who gives us tips on how big the possible income is when we already get into this career, and for letting us know or discover how noble and important our future career, as without teachers and professors, no other professionals will ever be produced, as all foundations of their educations rather, starts with the teachers or professor in preschool and elementary grade. When what is being taught to be to the students is presented creatively, it stimulates their high order thinking skills or the HOTS, enhances their curiosity, and heightens their interest to learn more about it. Teaching strategies that allow personal choices and control, collaboration, and creation for learners contribute to a more heightened intrinsic motivation for learning. And now for principle number 9, acquisition of sophisticated knowledge and skills requires extensive learner's effort and guided practice. The learner's motivation to learn is also partnered by their extended efforts. Of course, motivation without an effort or action is nothing. When a student is motivated, it is for sure be partnered with extended effort. For example, for us working students, if we are not motivated with our studies, we will not extend more time in making reports and doing assignments even after work. Say for example, for myself, I need to spend time at work, do my responsibility as a mother, and make my reports and assignments at work. Teachers facilitate learning opportunities and experiences that encourage learners to exert time and effort, and at the same time, commitment and enthusiasm toward a task they have to do, and a concept they have to learn. Teachers can create activities like reporting, tasks just like what we did with this subject, that to be honest, new to me, as this is my first time to do this type of reporting, as the usual reporting that I experience is the actual reporting either online or face-to-face. But for this, we need to do PPTs and record, of course, of ourselves rather, doing the report. It is very new for me. It is new, but is indeed a new experience and new skills that we learn. It is through the teacher's encouragements that they will have to do tasks with quality and not just for compliance sake. A lot of students with just extrinsic motivation usually perform the tasks just for compliance, but with the help of teachers and professors' encouragement, learners will be motivated to do better and give quality result of their task, and not just for compliance purposes. Teachers can praise works that have been done well. They can also acknowledge every little achievement of a person. It's this simple. The more motivation a teacher can give, the more motivated the students can be. Teachers can use the students' errors or mistakes as opportunities for mentoring. All this raise a person's motivation to learn. Instead of giving punishments or scolding the learners every time they commit mistakes or errors, teachers may use this as an opportunity to mentor or teach the proper way of doing the thing to get better results. By doing this, students will be more motivated to learn. Positive emotions established in the classroom as well as with others make learning interesting for everybody in general. The learning environment can also foster positive emotions when there is no competition between and among learners. And numeric grades are just secondary considerations as piece of evidence in learning. Although getting good grades is quite rewarding, learners must also know the numeric grade is just a secondary thing to consider as piece of evidence of learning. Instead of focus on their actual learning, they can get that they may be able to learn on their actual craft of their career. Before we proceed to the next category of psychological principle, let me have a review first. HOTS is an abbreviation of, correct, higher order thinking skills. Next is, what are the two types of motivation? That's correct, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Number 3, what motivation is manifested when an individual engages in an activity or task that is personally gratifying? The keyword is personally gratifying. That's correct, intrinsic motivation. Next one, what motivation is manifested when a person engages in a task or activity to earn external rewards or to avoid punishment in some situations? Very good, extrinsic motivation. Lastly, I have showed two pictures on the screen. Which picture do you think is practicing learner-centered teaching approach? Do you have an answer? The correct answer is letter B. Bravo! Okay, who among you get 5 correct answers? Very good. Now, I think we are ready to discuss the next two categories of psychological principles. Now, let us proceed to Lesson 2, Learning Principles on Development, Social, and Individual Differences for the third category. Developmental and social factor, we have two principles. The development and social factors are considered critical factors in the capacity of learners to engage in learning. Principle number 10, as individuals develop, there are different opportunities and constraints for learning. Number 11, learning is influenced by social interactions, interpersonal relations, and communication with others. Now, let us discuss principle number 10. As individuals develop, there are different opportunities and constraints for learning. Learning is most effective when differential development within and across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domain is taken into account. When a professor focuses also on the diversity of their learners and extend more effort in creating activities that suits to the learning level on each of their students, results will be better compared to just giving same activity to all of their learners. Knowledge on the physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domains of the learners is an excellent springboard for planning learning activities, materials, and assessment. When the professor or teachers know the dynamics of learning and the difference on the level of learning of their students, it is more easy for the professor to make a lesson plan tailor-fitted to that specific learners. By doing this, the professor can get better result during assessments. Often, some learners are not learning well because there is a mismatch between the learning activities and the learner's developmental stage. When a student that is not good in recitation and verbal activities, they for sure will not give a good result in class if you will focus on just recitations. Same with students that are good in verbal communications but are not good in written assessments. Teachers are persons and professionals who should be knowledgeable of the various developmental milestones of learners. They should not be working alone with instructional planning. They should always collaborate with school administrators, guidance counselors, learners' parents, guardians, and even family. As what the saying says, two or three heads is better than one, meaning more ideas and collaboration in working instructional materials, it will it will give better result than it is made by a single person. Specifically, teachers should always look into the readiness of the learners through keen observations, diagnostics, tools, authentic assessments, and the like. All of this will help to create optimal learning context and environment. Being a teacher requires more attention in observing their learners' level of learning and knows how to diagnose and assess their learners, as it is a very important key in order for a teacher to be effective in passing the information and letting the students understand the topics being discussed. And now, let us discuss principle number 11. Learning is influenced by social interactions, interpersonal relations, and communication with others. Collaboration is a 21st century skill. All learners should learn the skill of working with others in an instructional setting. This ability will prepare them for the real world where they are expected to interact effectively to a community of diverse people. Indeed true. Having a collaborative skill is very important. It should be learned by the student at the school and be practiced by way of actual collaborative activity. If this skill is being practiced already while they are still a student, it will be for sure be a normal thing for them, or this will be very easy for them to do as they are already used to collaborating to other. It's either their workmates, parents, or the community as a whole. Collaborative skill encompass social interactions, interpersonal relations, and communication. Learning activities in the classroom should offer opportunities for such collaborative skills. Group works, group dynamics, as well as group tasks are examples of the situations where such can be developed. When learners work with their peers and classmates, they learn to appreciate and respect diversity. They practice their listening skills and at the same time consider each other's perspective and contributions on the task to be completed. Just like what I am saying a while ago, an actual collaborative activity should be done in the classroom for the student to have an actual experience of collaborating with their classmates. As we say, experience is the best teacher, and experiencing the actual thing is way better than just being discussed. When adequately facilitated by the teacher, this ability contributes to a positive and healthy learning such as respect for each other's opinions, give and take relationships, and taking responsibility for the assigned task to develop the interpersonal relationships of the learners. Collaboration is the best way of teaching the students to show respect on others' opinion. As we have diverse students and they came from different area, ways of life, culture, financial status, you can expect a different attitude and opinions in a certain situation. With an activity being practiced, uh, collaboration being practiced by students will learn how to adjust and respect. The students will also learn to be more responsible and mindful of the task given to them. And now, we are down into the last three psychological principles under the fourth category, or the individual differences factor, which is also considered critical factor in the capacity of learners to engage in learning. Number 12, or principle number 12, learners have different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning that are a function of prior experience and heredity. Principle number 13, learning is the most effective when differences in learners' linguistic, cultural, and social backgrounds are taken into account. Principle number 14, setting appropriately high and challenging standards and assessing the learner as well as the learning progress, including diagnostics, process, and outcome assessment, are integral parts of the learning process. Let us discuss the principle number 12. Learners have different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning that are a function of prior experience and heredity. Diversity is a natural part of life. The learning environment is the best example where diversity is manifested between and among learners. Yes, indeed, diversity is a natural part of life, as we have been raised by a different family, environment, family status, and culture. Due to this different attitude and mindset of a student is also different. It is important to give a diverse learning environment and a tailor-fitted activity and ways of teaching in classroom. Each learner has his or her learning style, intelligence, potential, skills, talents, learning preferences, as well as cognitive abilities, which are the effects of both experience and heredity. Having different or diverse student requires also diverse way of teaching, lessons, and activities. This is to ensure that all students can have the same result by learning the required learning even though students have a different style of or level of learning. The key is to ensure that the students will learn no matter how and what teaching style that the teachers needs to apply in the class. Theories on multiple intelligence, training, and differentiated instructions are all to be considered when planning the delivery of lessons. Teachers assist and support their learners in identifying their most effective learning style, dominant intelligence, skills, and potentials, and help them identify the ways and mean on how they can use them to maximize learning. Current trends in teaching encourage teachers to apply concepts on multicultural teaching, differentiated instruction or DI, and the Universal Design for Learning or UDE. All these principles support the premise that teachers should be creative, innovative, and supportive the individual differences of their learners. These trends in teaching offer various ideas, options, and ways by which diversity can best be used for meaningful teaching and learning. Principle number 13. Learning is most effective when differences in learners' linguistic, cultural, and social background are taken into account. Multicultural teaching encourages teachers to consider their learners' linguistic, cultural, and social backgrounds. Language can be a barrier in learning when learners cannot express themselves properly and when the learning material is not also related to their social context. Of course, how can a student participate in class if he or she did not understand the language which is being used in the class? Even in movies, we have what we call subtitles, right? So the viewers will understand what the movie is all about. Just like in the classroom, it is very important to first consider the learner's diverse language. That is why a teacher who knows the local language in schools located in far-flung areas is being hired to ensure proper communication and understanding of the topics being given in the classroom. Given may be too vague or abstract because their most specific application cannot be found outside of the school. Cases and situations should be contextualized and localized. Also, activities and type of teaching must be localized, or if a teacher introduced new trend like in a far-flung areas who doesn't know yet the new trend of digitalization, if this will be introduced to the students, the teacher should give or spend more effort in order for the student to learn and understand it. When learners find that their lessons are also concretely seen in their places and are closely related to their environment, the more they can appreciate learning. As we say, it is very easy for the students to understand if they actually is experiencing it or they have experienced it, as they can relate to the situation. If a certain topic or the topic that has been imparted to the students is familiar or relatable, it is more easy for them to understand. When teaching students something that is new to them, teachers should, as I say, spend more effort and time for the student to understand it and relate to it. Culture makes one person distinct from other people. Indeed true. Our culture or the student's culture makes them distinct or unique with each other. Every culture has different or variety of beliefs and practices. What is with this tribe may not be what is okay with this tribe may not be okay with the other tribe. Reason why teachers should also be considering in planning an activity the cultures and beliefs of the students. Students manifest differences in language, values, belief system, and way of life. An inclusive classroom is one that welcomes and respects these differences, which are incorporated into their learning activities. By incorporating the students' differences in language, values, belief system, and ways of life on their learning activities in the classroom, the students will feel more confident and can relate on the topic being discussed. They will feel more included as they will not feel that their culture and beliefs were being disregarded or will feel respected. With this, students were more participative or active in class as they will feel that they belong in the classroom. They are also used as actual examples of concepts presented during discussion. Students do not feel discriminated upon and ridiculed because of their uniqueness as an individual. When each learner feels valued, accepted, and appreciated for what he or she is, this affirmation contributes to a positive learning environment. Principle number 14. Setting appropriately high and challenging standards and assessing the learners as well as the learning progress, including diagnostic, process, and outcome assessment, are integral part of the learning process. Assessment and evaluation are essential parts of the teaching and learning process. The results of assessment conducted are used to gauge the learner's strengths, weaknesses, limitations, and areas of difficulties. When the evaluation of the assessment or evaluation is poor, maybe something is wrong with the teaching style, or the teacher will know what he or she needs to re-evaluate his or her way of teaching. Teachers can also determine what kind of support and scaffold the learners need. This process also includes knowing which instructional materials would best assist a learner for better school performance. Assessment should be an ongoing process, whether it was informative or summative. Results should be used as means of improving the teacher's strategies and techniques in teaching. Low results may not always be attributed to students' negligence and difficulties, but may also be because the teacher's strategy was not effective during the delivery of the lesson. Teachers should be more open on changes, just in case the result given during the assessment or evaluation is poor. As being open-minded is the key to be better, and it will also give a better result when the teacher knows how to adjust and is willing to improvise his or her way of teaching. Teacher should focus on the good result and will always willing to change and improve her way of teaching to come up to a better result or more improved results on learning of their students. Assessments, therefore, is for both the teacher and learner. Assessment and evaluation are a gauge on the effectivity of the teacher's way of teaching and also on how the learners is accepting the topics and information given to them. That's all for today. Any questions and clarifications, please feel free to ask. Meanwhile, let me end you with a quote. Teaching is more than imparting knowledge. It is inspiring change. Learning is more than absorbing facts. It is acquiring understanding. Again, this is Luella Ganados. Have a good day.